and welcome back to our homeroom, and welcome to 2026. We are now a few weeks into this next semester, which means we're over halfway through the school year, which is great, but it also means this time of year brings some really challenging behaviors. I know as a classroom teacher, February was my worst month for classroom behavior. And I know, at least as a parent at home, we're all struggling to really kind of do anything because it's winter and nobody wants to be doing anything productive at all. So it's a challenging time right now to get everybody up and learning in the classroom. So because of that, this episode is really more of a call to action more than it is necessarily a class, because everywhere I look, as a coach, as I'm still connected to all my teacher pages on social media, all everybody does is complain about behavior. It is in all the circles. Parents are struggling with it with their children. Teachers are struggling with it in the classroom. The problem that we're having is everyone is blaming everyone else, right? Parents are blaming the schools and the teachers. Teachers are blaming the parents. And really, that is not the problem. So I want to spend time talking about that today, because when behavior is bad in the classroom, everyone is on guard, right? But if you think about learning, it requires safety, openness, vulnerability. And if my classroom feels unsafe as a learner, I'm not going to be able to be vulnerable and open and learn to the best of my ability. So if we do not figure out how to better manage behavior in school, our children will not learn to the best of their ability. And teachers have every right to be struggling right now. They are dealing with outbursts on a daily basis. They are dealing with a classroom full of different needs that have to be met with different accommodations. They're dealing with violence, destruction, disrespect. It is not a pretty sight in a regular classroom right now. Parents are also struggling, though. These children are just a little different nowadays. We're going to go into why that is in a little bit, but everybody is struggling. Teachers are struggling, parents are struggling, and yet each of them are blaming each other, and we've got to stop at this point. Let's instead work together, because there's no way it can be all the teachers that are causing the problem, and it can't be that all parents are bad. Maybe we should stop and look that it's maybe the system that is the problem, right? Maybe parents and teachers could back up a little bit and realize they're actually on the same team. Both parents and teachers want children to learn, right? They want their children to come to school and enjoy it. Teachers want to come to school to enjoy it. Parents would love it if their kids came home raving about their school day. I mean, this is both people on the same team, and yet we're fighting each other, right? Parents and teachers are blaming each other. And I just think we're at the point that we need to work together. So instead, what if parents and teachers could come together against the system as the problem, not each other as the problem, but the system as the problem, and start tackling school behavior? So today I'm going to dig into what the root of the problem is. It is not parents and it is not teachers. It is the system. Why is this system not working anymore? It's been around for, a couple hundred years, and yet all of a sudden behavior is just at a peak. Why? Why is it such an issue? And then I'm going to provide some solution ideas for both parents and teachers for how we can start shifting this around. I just think it's time. I think if we can just drop the blaming and start working together, we may be able to actually solve this problem. So how about let's work together to improve school behavior? Let's get into that now. So our kids will not be able to learn unless we solve behavior in the classroom. But why is it so bad all of a sudden? We've been doing schools literally the same for 200 years. What is happening now? Well, if you think back to how we've disciplined children over the years, it's been using authoritarianism, right? Authoritarianism is everywhere in our societies. It's in our religions, it's in our government, it's in our parenting styles, and it's also within the school system. And authoritarianism has one of the biggest flawed understandings in human history, that children are bad when they misbehave. So To eradicate that badness, we must punish them, humiliate them, shame them, or instill to get that quote bad out of them, right? And nothing could be further from the truth. But for centuries, children have just complied out of fear. This has caused a lot of trauma, and then those children grow into adults that are now still angry and are now using punishment themselves to take it out on their children. And then that cycle continues. We wonder why we're seeing so much violence in the world right now. It's because authoritarianism. That is the problem. Authoritarianism is this hierarchical power structure where people are at the top, the bosses are at the top, and they boss the people at the bottom. People at the bottom really have no power or control over much of their lives at all. They are bossed and controlled and micromanaged, and then they are forced to comply because of the use of humiliation and punishment and the fear of not complying, the fear of something bad happening if they do not comply. We wonder why we see so many adults that are being so violent right now. It is the result of authoritarianism. When you are repeatedly punished or humiliated or shamed when you are young, you are going to grow up and have a lot of issues with that. You're either going to take that out on others, or you may be depressed or have some other internal issues. But authoritarianism is very harmful. There are so many research studies out there that show that. And this is a big problem, and our schools are still trying to discipline using authoritarianism. These children won't stand for it anymore. They are more sensitive and more compassionate than other generations. At least that's the experience I saw in the classroom over the 25 years of being in the classroom. The children that now are just more sensitive. They're more compassionate. They know that bullying is wrong. They want to band together with the other kids to go against the bully, right? So then when they turn around and they look at the way they're being managed in the schools, they kind of see that it looks a lot like bullying. They can see that that is not the right way to manage people. So it just doesn't work anymore. The system is fighting that, right? They're still trying to push for that authoritarianism, but it will not work. The time has come that we must make changes. We can still try to keep fighting that. Oh, but our kids need this and they need this and they need this. No, they do not need authoritarianism. It has to change. And what better way to change it but starting in the classroom, right? Because then if we can set a good model in the classroom, which is really our kids' first working model of society, right? Their first dive into being with other people from other families that have different backgrounds and different needs and different behaviors, right? So if we can have a classroom set up that is not using authoritarianism, then our children will live through all of their K-12 years seeing a different model for how to manage people. And how amazing would that be? Then they can go into society and model that when they open their own businesses, right? It is time to change authoritarianism. We just can't do it anymore. It's not working. So this is why it's important that teachers and parents come together against this system, because it will not change on its own. In fact, there are a lot of reasons why it doesn't want to change, because it benefits the system. The worse children feel, the worse they do on these test scores, and then the more they need to sell their magical how to get your test scores higher books, right? So the system is not set up to change itself. We are going to have to work together to do that ourselves. So let's understand what is the root cause of the misbehavior so that we can turn around and have some solutions that are going to directly improve it. So the best thing to do is to understand, why do we behave the way we do anyway? Now we know that our behavior is completely based on how we feel, which is based on whether our needs are met or not. Not our wants, but our integral human needs. If our needs are met, we feel good. When we feel good, we have good behavior. When our needs are not met, we have bad feelings and then can in turn have bad behavior. But needs drive feelings, which drive behavior always, right? That is the essence of behavior. Your child is not bad. There is no such thing. They might be choosing bad choices, but they are not bad inherently. The only reason we are seeing children misbehave is because their integral human needs are not being met and they don't know what else to do. So they feel bad and they're making bad choices. and they're trying to get that need met maybe in an unhealthy way, but they are not bad. So when we continue to punish and humiliate and things like that in the classroom, it just makes it worse, because that makes you feel even worse. Then they have even more negative feelings, and then they have more negative misbehavior. So we've got a system set up here that is just causing more and more misbehavior. And authoritarianism does not meet human needs. That's not the point. Authoritarianism is simply to control. Authoritarianism is not making sure that everyone within that system has their needs met, so it just doesn't work anymore. So what are the needs that are missing the most? How do we know? How do we know which needs our kids are missing? We look at misbehavior. Every missing need has a corresponding misbehavior attached to that. If this is all new and you haven't listened to my other podcasts, please go back to my first few podcasts where I go into the 6 essential needs and what misbehaviors line up for which one. Okay, so most common misbehaviors that I'm hearing about as someone, as a coach, also from when I was a teacher in the classroom, are these: defiance, laziness, disrespect, and violence. Those are the 4 biggest. Are there many others? Yes, but these are the 4 that I hear about the most. So defiance, what is defiance? It is a need for power. It is a need for choice. Our children have almost zero choice or power over their learning. They don't get to pick classes, most of all. They don't get to pick their teachers or when they learn or how they learn. They are pretty much directed all of the time. So it is expected that after feeling controlled or powerless or micromanaged, that they may fight back to try to gain control or choice or power. So as annoying as defiance is, as terrible as that is, try to sit back and think of it from their perspective. All right, laziness. What is laziness but a need for encouragement? It can also maybe be passive power, because it can kind of look like laziness, but usually a child who is lazy is checked out, right? They've given up. Maybe they've been wrong too many times or imperfect too many times, and they're feeling discouraged. Why bother? They're never going to live up to the expectations, so they just give up. They often feel also completely disconnected from the learning environment. Again, it's all adults that are just telling them what to do, when to do, how to do it. They don't feel involved in it. They don't feel like they're motivated at all to do it. It has nothing to do with them. It's the parents, right? And the teachers and the school officials. They don't feel involved in it. So when they feel disconnected and when they feel discouraged, they back up and they just check out. And that can look like laziness, but it's really discouragement or disconnection. So disrespect is a need for respect. Children, because they're undervalued in society and in the school system, right? That can make them feel disrespected and then in turn disrespect others. Is it right? No, it's not. Disrespecting is no good, but we have to start and remember that children weren't born disrespectful. So what has caused them to be disrespectful? Someone has disrespected them over the years. It could be somebody at home, but it also could be the school system or teachers or things like that. And if this happens long enough, children build up a wall and they're just disrespecting everybody else because they're tired of getting that disrespect thrown back at them. And then violence. Children who are violent feel rejected and angry. And if we look at the children in society that have grown into very violent adults, it is because somewhere along the way they were rejected. They do not even feel part of society. They don't even feel like they belong at all. They are completely lacking belonging, and that makes them feel really bad and angry. So then they start to take that out on others, because if others feel as bad as they feel, maybe then there'll be empathy and they will understand them and they will get that belonging that they seek. These children are our hardest to work with because they are going to convince you of how bad they are because of how bad they believe themselves to be, because of the rejection and the hurt that they have received over years and years of this authoritarianism. They believe that they are unlovable, most of them, and so they are hurting from that rejection and often taking it out in a violent way. This system that is based in authoritarianism separates everybody, keeps everybody fighting with each other, causes so much negative emotion, and all that negative emotion turns into negative behavior. And we're seeing it from everyone too, not just the kids. The teachers are also really struggling in this system. It is not built for them either. They are micromanaged. They are controlled. They are told what, when, how to teach, and then all of their salary is based on making sure kids pass a test score that is very much out of their control. So the system is just not working. Let's understand that the only reason children are behaving badly is because their needs are not being met. If we can focus on meeting needs in the classroom instead, then everything starts to shift. And I saw it in my classroom so many times. When I was that teacher, and I was on top of them and I'm yelling at them and lecturing them and punishing them and doing all these things, rebellion broke out. They were mean to me. They were mean to each other. Feelings were really bad. Nobody was behaving well. I was coming into school hating it. They were hating it. Terrible. As soon as I sat down and was like, what is going on? Why are you guys acting this way? What's the problem? What do you need? It opened up the conversation. The kids started being honest with me, and literally behavior changed on a dime. Everybody's energy came down, and we all started realizing, hey, let's get on the same team and figure this out together. Nobody wants to be this miserable in the classroom. So if we can start to shift that, start to be curious about the children's behavior instead of blaming them for being bad and realizing that the system is causing them to misbehave, then maybe we can start shifting things and turning things around. But how? How can we? As teachers and parents, we don't have a lot of control in the system. So I'm going to go over just a few ideas that hopefully can get us started in the right direction instead. So how do we change behavior in a system that is so resistant to it? I think of it kind of in three phases. So you want to shift your mindset first, because if your mindset's not in the right place, then the rest of it doesn't really matter. Then you're going to want to shift your words, the way you're relating and discussing misbehavior in the classroom. And then third, you're going to want to take action. So let's talk about shifting your mindset. First, start to shift your mindset with each other. So parents towards teachers, teachers towards parents. How can you move towards a togetherness mindset? How can you start to see each other as on the same team? How can you move away from blame and get into empathy? Understand that everyone is doing the best they can in the situation they're in. And to think, wow, parents really must be struggling if their children are having this behavior problem at home. Oh, wow, teachers must really be struggling if behavior is this hard to deal with in the classroom, right? Teachers and parents are both doing the best that they can with these new children that are expected to be managed a little bit different in the past. And we don't all have the tools for that. This is new. We've been doing authoritarianism forever. We don't know what else to do because we don't want to go to permissiveness. We know that that doesn't work. It produces entitlement. Then there's chaos in the classroom. Teachers can't have that, right? They can't be permissive because then it gets out of control. But authoritarianism is not working either. So trying to figure out a new way in between is going to be hard. So have empathy with each other that you're trying to figure this out the best that you can. Then with children, shift your mindset with your students in your class or with your children at home. Instead of judging children as, quote, bad, get curious about what could be their missing needs if they are behaving this way. Go back to the 4 that I shared, but there are a ton of other missing needs too. What could their missing needs be, right? My first few episodes where I go over the 6 essential needs and how those show up as misbehavior, and that can also get you started. Begin to think, how can you and the students start to have an us versus the problem mindset? Can you have class meetings? Can you sit together and talk to your children about the problem? Can you just come down off that hierarchy and get comfortable with your children in order to solve it together? The children also want behavior to be better in the classroom, right? And you'd be so shocked at how many ideas they have on how to do that. So if you're not ready to act on it, just start shifting your mindset. How can you start viewing your children from the perspective of missing needs? And how can you start viewing the parents or the teachers as on the same team as you? So start shifting that mindset. The second thing is to shift your words. So when you're discussing misbehavior as a parent or as a teacher, let go of blaming kids for bad behavior. They don't have bad behavior in a vacuum. They are not, most of them are not born bad, quote unquote. Something has caused that. Some kind of need that has been repeatedly unmet is causing your child to have this bad behavior. So when you are starting to see this bad behavior, and reframe it with your words, even with other teachers or with your partner, through the lens of missing needs. So, wow, Ellie really must need some more choice and power because I'm seeing all this fighting and defiance and power seeking. She must need some more choice. Or Lucas's laziness is telling me he is feeling discouraged and disconnected. So just start changing your words around from blaming the kids for being bad. These kids are so bad, they're misbehaving, they're all bad, 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 into wow, they've got a lot of missing needs. And then take action. So administration, if I happen to have any administrators listening here, start prioritizing behavior training for your teachers. Please, please, please. Your teachers need strategies for the classroom. They don't need whatever it is you're doing with the deans and the people in the office. They need things in the classroom so that they can stop sending them out and missing all that time in the classroom. They need strategies that are quick, that are easy, that they can implement, that will change everything and start shifting around to meeting needs. There are a ton of things out there. I offer things to help you as well. As a teacher, I've got really quick, easy solutions because I did not have time, but there are so many easy ways to just start building relationships with your kids and shifting that around so that needs are met in the classroom and behavior gets better. If you are a teacher, try to start promoting a classroom where children are getting their needs met based on the behaviors I listed in the last slide: defiance and laziness and disrespect and violence. Look at your children's misbehavior. What is the one that's standing out the most that seems to be the biggest problem? And then start to see if you can provide that. If there's a lot of defiance, where can you give them some choices? If you're seeing a lot of laziness, where can you build them up and offer them some support? If you're seeing disrespect, maybe figure out how to be more respectful and value them and their opinions a little bit more in the classroom. And if you're seeing those violent kids, how can you include them more? How can you make them feel part of the team? So I know it's really difficult. I've got a bunch of podcast episodes. You can go back and listen because the things I share with parents also work for teachers. So see if you can find ways to promote togetherness in your classroom that is you and the children against the problem of the behavior. And what kind of things can you do to help them meet their needs in class? Parents, also at home, make sure you're helping meet your children's needs and then get involved in the school. The schools do not listen to teachers. I tried forever to get this information out, and the schools were just like, we have a behavior program, we're good. They did not want to help teachers with strategies for behavior. They're of the mindset that they have it under control. We know that they don't. So parents, they'll listen to you. Start speaking up for better support for the teachers. Start being on their side and advocating for them with administration that you're seeing teachers struggling. How can you help? Admin will listen to you more than they will the teacher. So start using your voice as much as you can. So the more we can start shifting our mindset, shifting our words, and then taking action in the smallest ways that we can, then eventually we can start seeing difference. And then maybe we can start spreading that to more classes and then more schools and hopefully change that system. But blaming each other does not solve the problem at all. So yes, we may not be able to make a big system change, but we can at least start to shift some little things in our classrooms and in our homes and with each other to make behavior easier for everybody. And it may be hard to make any big system changes, but I will tell you this right now, blame is definitely not doing it, right? The system we've got is definitely not doing it. So it can't hurt if teachers and parents come together and try to make a difference with behavior and start moving past that blame so that we can change our mindsets, our words, and start acting on things that can make behavior better in the classroom. So the homework this week is just kind of an extension of the taking action, and I've broken it into homework for teachers and homework for parents. So teachers, you are probably burnt out already. I know that you're ignored by school officials a lot when you try to make any kind of changes. So the only thing you may be able to do is start shifting your mindset for now. So think about the parents that you have. Are there any that you could team up with to start going to administration together about asking for some help with classroom behavior, that maybe they could spend some time and money to give you all some training so that you can handle these children in the classroom? And then think about your students. What is their misbehavior telling you they need? What are some things you can provide in the classroom so that if their needs are met, they feel better and then they act better, right? So just start thinking about misbehavior differently. There may not be a lot that you can do. However, like I said, my podcast deals with a lot of different misbehaviors. I've got one on power struggles, I've got one on laziness, and it helps you understand. And most of those solutions are things you can do in the classroom. So if you're willing and able to try something new, I highly suggest those episodes. But for me, I will tell you this as a teacher, the biggest, best improver to behavior was when I had 20-minute Friday class meetings where the kids complimented each other. And that helped lift everybody up. But then we also problem solved the issues that were happening. So the kids had a voice. We decided together how to handle problems in the classroom. And it was huge. And that alone, I felt like dealt with about 95% of the behavior in the classroom because we were all on the same team. And the more people feel togetherness, they feel part and connected to a community, the more likely they are to cooperate, right? We're getting rid of that authoritarianism, and instead we've got to think of it as cooperation. How can we all work together? So the more you can promote that togetherness idea, the more you will see better behavior in the classroom. And then parents, admin is listening to you. So how can you promote change? Through PTA. Maybe you can hire some people to come in, use some PTA money to hire someone to come in to speak about behavior. Can you build a coalition of parents that goes to speak up to meetings at administration? Can you sit on the budget committees and help promote how behavior really needs to be a priority? And can we start using school funds to help support teachers in the classroom with behavior? How can you start speaking up or contacting school board members? They also in the system need to understand that behavior needs to change, and it's not going to change without their support. And then how can you also get on the same team as the teachers to help promote better behavior at school? So I know this is tough. And again, it's more of a call to action that it is definite solutions that you can take and start right now. I understand that the system is really hard to change, but even if you can just start thinking of each other on the same team, I think that would help so much. How can you just talk to each other and say, hey, I'm really struggling? Have a meeting with all your parents and say, we're struggling with behavior in the classroom. How can we work together? What's going on with you guys at home? Give me some insight as to what's happening at home so maybe I can better understand how to manage these students in my classroom. So try to figure out a way to come together, and then maybe we can start to see some changes. But it is the end of authoritarianism as we know it, and we're seeing this all over the world right now. It just won't work. Somehow we have to start shifting into a new way of meeting children's needs in school so that they feel better, which means they behave better, which means then they learn better. So please reach out if you have any questions or comments about this or ideas, or if you know anyone that is already doing all of this in the classroom, let me know, and I would love to share some resources for ideas for that. And then I also can come into schools and work with teachers. I can also help parents. That is what I do, is I literally have a simple system for managing misbehavior so that we're meeting needs and then everybody feels better and acts better. So please reach out to me and I can figure out a way to help you and your school and your specific situation. So have a good rest of your January. I will be back the third week of February. Bye-bye, everybody.